welcome to the green room.
Hi.
Hi. Today we're here to talk about strays, and joining me are Dan and Elaine.
Hi.
Hi. Tell us a bit about what you guys do in the Welcome Centre here at Wood Green. So, and how long you've been here. Elaine, do you want to go first? Because you've been here forever.
I've been here over 10 years. I'm not going to tell you
Nearly
exactly
20?
No, nearly 20, 15-ish and a bit.
It's 19.
Yeah, it's 19.
Yeah.
I'm a pet advisor, so I help people find their perfect pet, in theory.
And have you always done that, or have you done other stuff before?
No, I've worked outside in the kennels, I've worked on small animals. I don't think I've worked on cats. No, I haven't worked on cats. Couldn't remember. It's been so long.
I was about to say, oh, you're so old. That's horrendous.
Oh, that's so funny.
Moving on. Dan, how
Oh.
long have you been at Wood Green?
About 2.5 years now.
Okay, so you're a baby.
Yeah, a little Wood Green baby. I've been in the Welcome Centre with Elaine for about the last year and a half. And before that, I worked at our Hayden Centre, working with the cats and with the fosterers.
We better start this off by saying what the difference is between stray and abandoned pets, because it's a very different thing, isn't it?
Very different, yeah.
What's a stray pet?
It's a dog or a pet that's been found that doesn't potentially have an owner, or we don't know where its owner is.
And abandoned.
Is it an
Pretty
owner
much.
just letting their pet go, really?
Probably
Yep.
isn't always obvious at face value which category an animal falls into, depending on the scenario. But
Got a statistic for you.
Okay.
Done my research too. Somebody else did this. There are 56,000, or there were 56,000 stray dogs in the UK in 2018. That really shocked me.
That's
the UK, I
huge.
wasn't
Yeah.
expecting you to say the UK, I was expecting you to say somewhere much larger.
56,000 in 2018.
And how many of those got reunited with owners?
I didn't get that far in my research.
Well, I would imagine most of those, surely.
You'd hope so, but we know all too well doesn't always happen. Cats, we couldn't actually find a statistic for. The statistic we actually found was that there are 10.9 million cats in the UK, actually slightly more than dogs, and 9 million of those are strays, which you can't imagine to be the case, right?
There's a lot of elderly people inviting other people's cats into their homes and feeding them and stuff, but 9 million seems a bit steep.
It does indeed. We'll start off with dogs, Elaine. Like, how do we manage stray dogs in terms of like our process? We've got contracts with
Four
Some
councils.
four
yeah,
councils.
Yeah.
And how does it work? So when a dog comes into us,
It depends if a dog's been brought in by a member of public or the warden, but we have to scan it for a chip. If that chip's registered, we need to try and contact the details from that chip. The dog's given 7 days time in our kennels, but enough time for an owner to come and reclaim them. If after that time they don't get reclaimed, then we put them up for homing.
okay. Do we hold the dogs for 7 days, and then are we the legal guardian of the dog, or is it the local authority that's the...
It's the local authority that's the
Okay.
guardian of the dog
Okay.
while it's doing its stray time. Once that stray time's finished, then we become the legal guardian until it's rehomed.
And do people get annoyed that
Yes.
we've got their dog?
Yes, they do. Well, they do, because it's often the case that they don't see the dog as being strayed because it's just got out of the gate or whatever. But yeah, they do get annoyed, and they get really annoyed about having to pay the stray fines, and they think that we impose those fines, and we don't. It's all down to the council.
But I mean, those fines like help us take care of the
Yeah.
animals, right? And they
Yeah.
help the council be able to pick up that dog and transport
Yeah.
it to somewhere safe, and
And
then
all
we
their
can look
admin
after
fees.
it. Yeah, and all their
Yeah.
admin fees. So actually, I mean, that they can be pretty steep though, right? If someone's only lost their dog for a few hours, but there's a
Yeah.
lot that goes on in that time.
And we are keeping their dog safe.
And by sort of us existing and being able to take care of these dogs for 7 days, we need the money to be able to do that. We need the funding, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. It costs a lot to keep a dog here.
Absolutely. And you mentioned briefly about microchipping. Is it law to microchip dogs?
Yeah, it's a legal requirement to have 2 forms of ID on your dog, so they must have a microchip and an ID tag with the owner's details on the tag. I think it's a fine of up to £500 if those details aren't up to date.
Wow.
So it is really important to keep those details up to date. So if people move, they must keep those details updated.
And obviously much easier for us to reunite the dog with its owner
much
if it's
quicker.
got a tag and or a chip. Your dog ever strayed?
Not officially. He might have snuck out the gate a couple of times, but not officially.
I've definitely heard this, that someone that used to
Yes.
work with us picked up your dog in the village.
Yeah, it might have been Alice who brought Baggins round to our house once.
That's your big mastiff.
Yeah, we didn't even notice he'd gone missing.
Oh, such responsible
I
dog
know.
owners.
And there was another time when I had to say to the kids, "Where's Mushroom?" And they went, "Oh, I don't know. I think he might have gone to the park." There I was running down the park to collect Mushroom.
Just taking himself for a walk.
Yeah, the kids left the gate open. Mushroom's gone out for a little plod down to the park.
That's a classic though, isn't it? Kids leaving the gate open, or
Yeah,
you've left
in
your
the
door
summer,
open, or
yeah.
answered the door, and the dog's just shut off, and there's so
Yeah.
much going on, you've not even had time to realise that the
Mm.
dog's disappeared. And all along the same lines as microchipping, with cats, do they not have to be microchipped by law?
Not by law.
Okay.
It's strongly recommended, obviously, and I think it's thankfully due to like campaigning and places like here, it's becoming more and more common. But it's not a legal requirement. And if you're purchasing your cat or kitten from an unofficial source, maybe or privately, and
So like a
microchipping-
breeder
yeah.
or an online seller.
maybe a more casual breeder, and microchipping is not done as standard. There's potentially nothing prompting you to go and get it done as a follow-up, not to mention the cost of it as well.
Okay.
But you must have that with people. Often their cats often get pregnant and they have litters. It happens all the time, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And they won't be microchipped, will they, those particular?
No.
We, on that topic, we very regularly here have a kitten season, once a year.
When's kitten season?
The warmer months, so I'm always telling people sort of March onwards, but I'm predicting maybe another month or so later this year.
Is that because the cats like to get busy when it's warmer?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. There's a staggering amount of unneutered females out. So, yeah, following on from what Elaine said, that's a lot of microchips that need to be put in and probably aren't put in.
Do you find a lot of cats that come in aren't microchipped then? Because we get a lot of dogs are microchipped now because it's a
Often
legal
not
requirement.
registered though, but they are
True.
microchipped. But yeah,
So like 50-50?
I would go with 50-50.
Yeah.
Because our cat section team deal with the stray cat intakes. They would probably have a better view on that, but I'd argue 50-50.
This leads us on to our next point because Dan has just done the stray in inverted commas. Can cats be strays? This is a bit of a controversial
Cats
subject.
can
isn't it?
be strays. How many cats are strays is a different story, and I think a lot of people jump to the conclusion that the cat is a stray, when in many cases the cat is actually just out and about, minding its own business and having a great time, or choosing to relocate potentially.
Is that something cats do? Just
Yep.
get bored in their previous home
Yep.
and decide to find a better one?
Yeah, I think it's quite common knowledge that we own dogs, but we don't necessarily own our cats.
They own us.
Yeah. And yeah, if you don't keep your cat content, busy household, and they're looking for somewhere a bit quieter to relax, wouldn't be surprised if they wander off to a quiet house around the corner where they can get slightly better food and they can chill out in the garden.
And that owner might potentially bring that cat in as a stray because it thinks that it hasn't got anywhere else to go.
Or what potentially is more common, just keep them. I've got a few stories along those lines. Sometimes they might find themselves going to a home where that person is concerned for that cat's welfare but can't take them in because of existing cats or bills or whatever, and so we'll bring them into a place like this where they could have potentially taken a few easy steps to reunite them with their original owners. And all we've done when they've arrived is we've scanned for a chip, found it, and then called them and they've come pick them up.
But if
So-
they're not chipped?
But if they're not chipped, yeah.
so if somebody phones you then and says they think they've got a stray cat, what would you advise those people to do? Just leave it there, or
So
knock on doors?
certainly don't feed the cat because you're just you're reinforcing that behaviour, encouraging them to keep coming back. Make a visual assessment of whether you think that cat's healthy or not. If there's no immediate need for them to have any veterinary care, which oftentimes there isn't, just leave them to it. They've probably just wandered along, found you outside the back of your home and are just interested in getting some fuss and maybe a bit of food.
Yeah, you do get that sometimes when you
Mm.
walk into the shop and you get cats just come up to you for a fuss.
Yeah.
And obviously, because cats don't wear collars like dogs often do, it's hard to tell if that cat does have an owner.
Yeah, Wood Green's advice on collars, even if you don't plan to use them long term, even short term, just as they first start going outside, it can be a useful indicator to your neighbours that this new cat in the neighbourhood isn't a stray. because a lot of people will pick it up and bring it in if they don't recognise it. Social media is a wonderful thing, and a lot of local village Facebook groups are populated with photos and posts of, hey, I've just had this cat wander into my garden. Does it belong to anyone? And then you get about 5 comments of, oh yeah, he comes into my garden as well, before you actually have an owner go,
Just a very sociable
yeah,
cat
that's
that likes
Teddy,
to make the rounds.
leave him alone. He'll come home soon. Please don't feed him.
Why don't we put collars on cats?
Um,
Like the quick release
Yeah,
ones.
yeah.
Does
So
some people use them,
they
or is
do,
it not really a
yeah.
widely used thing?
The advice we give out is, it's very much, I'll always ask people what your stance is on collars, because you tend to get people that are in 1 or 2 groups. They're either very strongly for the collars because they might have a bell on them that deters prey, or they might have a reflective surface on them that highlights them to cars in the dark, or you get people that are seriously worried that their cat's going to get caught on something and injure itself. So I'll always point out to people that if you're going to opt for a collar, make sure it's a safety release one. It's not essential, because some cats are going to decide that they don't actually want to wear collars, and if they're half smart, the safety release ones, they can take them off themselves.
Really? What,
yeah.
purposefully hang themselves
No,
to take
no,
the
but
collar off?
get a paw in there, use a bit of
Oh my
force.
gosh.
Yeah, it is possible. But so it's not that we don't put them on cats. It's not something we tend to send them home on, because you get owners in these 2 quite distinct groups. But I'll recommend it for the first few weeks the cat's going outside, just as an indicator to people that it's not a stray.
So after they've done their 7-day stray time here, both cats and dogs do their 7 days stray. So if no one reclaims them within that 7 days, we obviously rehome them, like you said. Have we ever had a dog or cat that's been found and reunited years after the owners have lost them? Does that ever happen?
Yeah, that has happened a couple of times. I remember a working Cocker Spaniel that was from Liverpool, I think, and made its way down to here. And 7 years later, the owners had spotted it on the website just because they were looking for another dog. And it came back in, and it was there.
That's crazy.
Dog.
They must have been so happy to find their dog. And
Yeah,
that dog
I
must have been, well, did it remember them?
Yeah, well, it was quite a happy dog anyway.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah, but yeah, the daughter of the family was really, really overcome. Obviously, she was hysterical. Crying.
Oh,
was very
that's
sweet.
amazing. You must
But
just
yeah.
give up all hope.
Yeah,
after
yeah,
that
they
long.
must have came looking at the website because they wanted to get another dog.
Oh.
Their
And there
dog
was their
was.
dog.
Oh, what a tearjerker.
Yeah.
What about cats?
Cat had gone missing for about 9 years. She'd basically gone round the corner or a couple of streets away, moved in with an elderly neighbour, as it were, or an elderly person a few streets off, was being fed, quite content there. This person passed away after about 4 years, and the cat then went on to live with one of her relatives. So I suppose, as far as the relative was concerned, this cat did belong to my grandma or my mum, whoever it was. No real need to look for an original owner or check for a chip or anything. In that situation, once the cat had gone to the relative, she wasn't actually allowed in the home, and she was living in the woodshed on the back, which she seemed quite content with. But as the years went by and she got older and it was getting colder, he did have some concerns for her welfare, and that's when he got in touch with Wood Green, explained, I don't really think I can give her what she needs anymore. Came in as a standard intake, checked for a chip. There was one already in there. It wasn't indicated to us that she had one. Called the original owners. They were a number of streets away from the old lady's house. They came and collected, took her home.
Yeah.
Happy days. 8 or 9 years later.
I'm like on tenterhooks, please.
Terrified of that ending.
So happy ending, sad ending.
Oh. It just shows like the amount of things we have to deal with in terms of strays and intakes. It's crazy, isn't it?
And every stray's got a good story behind it, really, haven't they?
Yeah.
Potential.
But how do you stop a cat from straying if it just wants to be somewhere else? You can't keep it indoors, can you, if it wants to be outdoors?
Definitely don't keep it indoors. You can slightly reduce the distance and the amount of time that cats spend wandering by neutering them. I'm generalising, and there will be some cats that fall outside of that, either because of temperament or breed. But generally speaking, if you're new to your cats, they don't wander quite as far.
Okay.
There's not quite all those hormones pumping around that would cause them to go on the prowl.
Go on the prowl.
Hormones.
Never heard. I would have thought I'd hear that from you, Dan. So as well as, sort of stray cats finding their way to people's houses and stray dogs being handed into us, we do get some dogs. I don't know about cats, but I've heard of dogs that have been abandoned on site, aren't there? So people that have just turned up and left the dogs tied up somewhere.
Yeah, that's happened several times.
It's happened quite a few times.
And I remember one time Tom got a phone call at home to say somebody had thrown a dog over the fence into the field, and Tom had to come up try and catch the little sweet Jack Russell. So yeah, that's happened a few times, and there was one recently. I think was it the collies? I can't remember because I don't think I was here. I think I was on maternity leave.
Oh, we had someone come in with 2 collies maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I think he tried to bring them in, but we didn't have any space, so he tied them to the desk, or tried to tie them to the desk in reception, old reception, and we'd managed to, before we ran off, we'd managed to sort of grab him and, ask him what the problem was and if we could help, and it turned out that he had the male collie who had some problems, so we got the female collie to try and help with things, but it just made it worse. So we ended up taking in the female collie and giving him advice and support through our behaviourists for the male collie, and he actually kept the male collie, who was going to be really hard to rehome because he had all sorts of issues. So that one's kind of a happy ending because we managed to kind of turn things around for him. I guess because people think they're doing a good thing by tying the dogs up.
Yeah, and if you're going to tie a dog up somewhere.
In a rescue. But having said that, we've got a very, very busy road out the front, haven't we? And the car park is just a few metres away from that main road. Yeah. What about cats? Do you ever get people bring cats on site and try and leave them?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, loads.
Oh,
yeah. Sometimes I think that it's relatively common that it's, I just found this cat, or this cat's been kind of straying around me for a while. So we're going back to the whole stray topic, claiming it's a stray when actually it's their cat, and they know a suspicious amount of information about the animal.
So
like
it loves Royal Canin. It loves to be petted on your lap.
Sleeping with you at night.
How do you know that? We get that with dogs quite a lot, though, don't we?
When it's very obviously the owner bringing in a stray.
And it's funny with dogs because people will bring the dog in as a stray, leave their details because we ask for the finder's details, and then we'll check the microchip and it'll come up with the finder's details, and then you have to ring the finder and go, we actually have you down as the owner of this dog. And people just claim ignorance, don't they?
Yeah.
They just, I mean, and in a way you can understand it. If you need to rehome your dog, circumstances have changed or whatever, it's quite a long wait to get sometimes a dog into a kennel. People are desperate, aren't they, sometimes?
Yeah, to make that decision. And once you made that decision, you just want to do it, don't you, really?
Yeah.
It's quite harsh.
It's quite an emotional thing.
But if you're willing to rehome or relinquish your dog through like the proper channels, and you're doing so responsibly, and you're doing the right thing for that dog, then Wood Green and most other charities will give you as much support as they possibly can, and try and do things
get a full history on the dog
for you as possible. It's the best way for them to come in. If they're coming as a stray, we don't know anything about the animal. And the examples I gave were where the cat's dumped by somebody. They actually dropped, like giving it to us in a carrier. But similarly to the dog over the fence, cats dropped over the fence in the evening, or just left in a carrier outside and the person disappeared, or whole selection. Cardboard boxes. Mum and kittens in a cardboard box.
Wow.
In a taped shut litter tray.
In a taped shut
litter tray? So you
can
get the enclosed litter trays with the little doors, having the door taped over. They're on in there.
God.
A variety.
We can't not talk about lurchers, really, can we? Because they're one of the most popular breeds that we get in as strays. And actually, people think we get staffies in. They're our biggest breed.
Yeah, it's still
strays.
coming up today. People, yellow staffies, don't they?
Not anymore. Not so much anymore. It's died well down now.
It has. In Christmas of 2018, over 50% of our kennel capacity was made up of lurchers.
I remember that.
Stray lurchers.
I remember that really well. I just felt like there was nothing else on site.
And it's hard to rehome lurchers, isn't it? Yeah, so 50% of our dog population on site was stray lurchers.
It's rarely a breed that people come in to ask for. Very rarely. Bless them.
Why do they normally come in as strays?
They're used by certain communities for coursing.
Okay, so hair coursing.
Hair coursing's amazing in this area because it's so flat. It's perfect for hair coursing.
And lurchers that come into us, often in a pretty poor state.
Trevor
Trevor.
Trevor.
Tripod
Sad.
Trevor.
Yeah.
He had 3 legs, by the way.
Yeah. We had to remove his leg when that happens.
Oh.
That's so common, removing, because they get injured, they can't course anymore, so
So
they're not
gangly,
any
and
value to
skinny.
the
So do they do that because they run onto roads and get hit by cars, or because it's such uneven ground that they just...
Yeah, run across a pothole, anything. They've got little twig legs, haven't they? They're
Run
snapped
through a
quite
bramble
easily.
bush.
Yeah.
Get all cut up.
Oh, they can come in with some really bad tears,
Yeah,
can't
awful.
they?
And yet, despite that, can still be the friendliest dogs.
They are just so,
So
grateful.
trusting. But
Yeah.
some of them come in very timid and very emotionally damaged and scarred from the whole
Yeah.
thing, because they're not often kept very nicely in between hair coursing, are they?
No, their experience of being around people isn't always the most pleasant.
And a huge cost as well to
Yeah.
rehabilitate these dogs. I mean, leg amputations, that's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
massive
medical costs,
operation
yeah.
and recovery, isn't it?
Yeah.
3-legged cats are quite popular
Hairless
as well.
Harry, he was another one quite recently, wasn't he?
Hairless Harry, I like these
Yeah.
nicknames.
Yeah, he
Tripod
had
Trevor.
3 legs and no hair, bless him, obviously.
Why
But
did he have
he's-
no hair?
Just had a horrible skin condition.
Oh.
But we've seen updates of him in his home, and he's got lovely ginger hair now.
Oh, but when they don't get reclaimed, obviously we rehabilitate them here, and sometimes it can take months.
Again, yeah, because they're not the most popular breed. They will stay here a bit longer than most other dogs, really.
And they struggle in the winter, don't they? They like being warm, they
They
like
don't
being
like
cosy,
being
Oh,
they
they're
like
all
being
walking around
curled
with
up.
their jumpers and their coats on.
Staff try and take them to the walk. They can't get past the welcome centre because it's warm in here, and we have lots of food.
Oh, and they love
They'll-
coming in
yeah,
here for
like
treats.
coming in here for little
Mm-hmm.
treats and snuggles.
Oh.
We can make a whole video just of clips of the lurchers walking through the front door and getting a snack from front desk.
They know which side their bread's buttered, don't they? And you kind of touched on it before, which was kitten season. Do we get a lot of kittens coming in as strays, or a lot of pregnant mums coming in as strays?
I don't have the figures, but a lot, significant amount.
Really?
Yeah.
And what, just because they've wandered off and had kittens, or because people don't want to deal with the kittens?
I feel like a lot of them do wander off, find a place to give birth, and then
Somebody finds them.
in some more extreme cases, in a plant pot in someone's garden, in the cab of someone's tractor in a field,
Wow.
in a shipping transport container, storage container, like in a warehouse type place,
Gosh.
and behind loads of pallets.
Not the ideal place to give birth.
No, and not
where
the
I
ideal
would
place
choose.
to catch them either. But yeah, the moral of the story: make sure you get them neutered, because we get far too many every year. We do find homes for all of them, but there's plenty of older cats that need homes that are getting overlooked because we've got lots of kittens.
Well said, Dan. And we don't only deal with stray dogs and cats. We haven't got someone here that's an expert in small animals, but we have to give them a shout out, because we get a lot of small animals that are abandoned on site or come into
Yeah.
us as strays as well, don't we? And you worked for a little bit on smalls, which I did
Yeah,
not even know.
A lot when I first started. Yeah, it was a long, long time ago. It's very different now.
But like, we do sometimes we've had rabbits in boxes that have been
Yeah,
abandoned
yeah.
on site. Sam, who used to work on smalls that works here now, was telling me that racing pigeons from as far as France have been found on site
Yeah.
Yeah.
and have
Scotland.
been reunited with their owners. Ferrets that have been reunited
yeah.
with their owners.
Because ferrets and rabbits are the only other animals that we microchip, aren't they?
Yeah.
Mm. And working ferrets often get microchipped,
Yeah.
don't they? So when they make it down the rabbit holes to flush out the rabbits, if they're working ferrets, they get lost down the rabbit holes and then end up popping up somewhere where someone then finds them.
Yeah.
Don't make apparently the best pets initially, because they're a bit bitey.
Not
They
the
can be a
working
bit
types.
bitey,
Yeah.
But she was telling me about one they had that they sort of rehabilitated and worked with a lot, and he went and lived with other ferrets and was a lovely pet. So even feral ferrets can make lovely pets.
We had colleagues bring in stray cockerels as well, didn't we, from the local area?
When you say local area, the petrol station down
Petrol
the road.
station down the road.
It's where you find all your cockerels. Yeah, it got stuck in a ditch eventually, I think, in a bramble in a ditch, and the staff had to go in and cut all their arms to try and get him out. I think it took them a few days to free him.
Evenings.
Evenings, out of hours. And then he got rehomed within 5 days, which is unheard of for a cockerel. It's basically all of our happy endings just
tragic
happen on
backstory.
smalls. Well, that's all we've got for today. Hang on. No, it's not.
Rewind to it.
We're going to try something this week. Rosie's going to be like, don't. We're going to do a Would You Rather. Ooh. And it's not about animals. Well, some of it's a bit about animals. And Elaine has helped me on this. And Elaine's children. Can you tell? Would you rather have an elephant's trunk or a giraffe's neck?
Well, I'd always go for a giraffe's neck because I'm so small.
Oh, you are. You're tiny. I can barely see you above your microphone.
Dan.
I'm like a child at the counter. I'm definitely going for the elephant's trunk because it's like basically like a third arm.
This is like going downhill.
That's not being included.
Well, thank you very, very much for joining me, Dan and Elaine. It was a pleasure. We learned a lot about strays. We'd love to hear from you, listeners, viewers. So please ask us a question about pets, anything you want. It could be about what we discussed today. Could be a would you rather question if you fancy it. Email podcast@woodgreen.org.uk. And we'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.